NGOs have to raise their game, unfortunately, because it's not enough just to document torture. It's not enough, I'm afraid, just to document someone being tortured and being arrested in an arbitrary way and not receiving a fair trial. It's obviously very important. But what they have to do is to get the attention of the authorities. Clearly legal action within those countries like Saudi Arabia is not working. They're just being ignored. The trials are rigged, the judges are politicized, so they have to engage the Western conventional media to exert external pressure. And the only way they're going to do that is to persuade CNN, the BBC, The Guardian, that this is an important story. Now, to do that, they have to introduce an extra element, not just that someone's been tortured. They have to go into the issue of why they're being tortured. So in Saudi's case, the reason these people were tortured, like Sandy Mitchell and the British expats, was because at the time the Saudis needed a scapegoat. Because in 2000, 2001, when Al-Qaeda was becoming very active, the Saudis needed a scapegoat. So they hauled up these British guys, tortured them, kicked the hell out of them, extracted confessions. And the reason, for example, why I was able to write my book, Saudi Babylon, why they got a lot of attention, a lot of press coverage, was we focused a lot on the reasons why they were tortured. And so that, I think, is a crucial tool for NGOs to think about in terms of getting media attention, exerting real pressure. Yeah, I mean, basically, when you research something like that, it's pretty conventional stuff. I mean, you have the testimony of the torture victim, but in Sandy's case, for example, he had diaries. His sister, Margaret, who was there at a lot of the meetings, she kept contemporaneous notes of meetings, so you had like a second source. You had medical evidence. You had a whole, and Saudi lawyers looked into the case, so they were able to. So you had a lot of corroborating sources, and there was nothing at that time. This is when the internet was just starting. There was nothing special. You didn't need special resources, but you had to think. It's not enough just to say someone's been tortured. I've been tortured. I mean, I don't want to belittle it in any way, but to have a real impact, to really get people's attention, and to help the legal case, you've got to build a case. And I think now, with the internet age, obviously now, with direct advocacy, you can put stuff out on the internet, you can have webcasts, everything is much more immediate. But the problem with the internet is that the regimes who you're trying to get their attention, you actually want to put pressure on these regimes. If they see it's just a website that some activist has set up, or even an NGO, they're not going to take it as seriously, unfortunately. So it has political benefits and it engages the activist base, but it doesn't really help in terms of exerting real pressure on the regime, which in turn they will do something to deal with the people who are suffering. Well, it does, but I think again it has to have an extra angle. I don't want to be too kind of cynical or kind of, in a way, but it's not. It's just you've got to find a new way of publishing these stories. And so if there's some new guideline, I mean, if they're going to change the law on sovereign immunity, for example, whereby officials in regimes like Saudi Arabia cannot be sued in Britain where they're British citizens, if they're going to change the law on something like that, then that's big news, because that opens up a whole range of litigation that victims of torture can then sue. But if it's just, to be frank, new guidelines by some committee in the United Nations, or something like that, is not going to get the media excited. What the media likes is some kind of hidden agenda to explain the reason why these people have been tortured, or something, a political angle to it, some sort of secret deal. For example, I'm speculating that the British royal family may have a special relationship with the Saudi royal family, and if it was shown that the members of the British royal family were in some way sympathetic to the House of Saud, that sort of thing would get the media excited. But if it's just, stuff that's just going through in terms of generic changes or reform, that's not going to get people excited. That's a very good question. I would probably prefer them to come to me directly, because, and then I would obviously go and talk to the NGO, but I think to get their immediate first-hand view, as opposed to it being filtered, and I'm not being kind of critical anyway, but in a sense, even subconsciously, an NGO or charity or whatever it is going to kind of put their own interpretation on the story, their version of events, which is not to say that they've got any kind of political agenda, but it's just human nature being what it is. It's always better to get it firsthand, and then obviously, you know, what they've told the NGO. I mean, that's pretty much what I would do on that case.